Welcome to the Range Podcast. I'm Ricky Bruley, and with me is Jake Hollywood Iverson. Join us at the Archery Range, where we'll tell stories from the hunt, discuss technical bow shooting tactics and gear, and pick the brains of some of the most successful people to ever shoot a bow. Whether you're about to shoot that X for the win or send an arrow at a trophy buck, this podcast is for you. The Range Podcast is brought to you by Vapor Trail Archery, makers of the best bowstrings money can buy, originators of limb-driven arrow rest technology, and innovators of Stokerized stabilizer systems. Welcome to The Range, everybody. I'm your host, Ricky Bruley, and today I'm joined by veterans Kyle Mindiola and Adam Erb of Archery Origins. Archery Origins is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to introduce veterans to the sport of archery and to demonstrate the therapeutic release that it can offer from daily stressors and PTSD. You can find more information about Archery Origins on their website at www.archeryorigins.com and on Instagram at Archery Origins. Thank you all for joining us today. You can find the video version of this episode on our Vapor Trail YouTube channel. So please head on over, subscribe, give us a like, and hit that bell so you can be up to date on all things archery. Don't forget to follow us at The Range Podcast on Instagram and on Facebook, as well as Vapor Trail Archery and Stokerized Stabilizers. Kyle, Adam, thanks a lot for being here today. And more importantly, thank you for your service. Welcome to the show. How you guys doing?
Good.
Doing good.
Yeah.
Now that we're going.
Yeah. Right. It's been a wild ride. I think we're like 2 hours and 45 minutes behind schedule right now.
Nobody's counting.
It's crazy. You guys were hearing me sawing stuff and banging on things and.
Good old Bob the Builder.
Waiting for the power tools.
Well, it's been just a crazy week. I won't get too deep into that, but yeah, just like a lot of last minute things came in, didn't have a lot of my adapters, didn't have camera stuff. So I'm like trying to make things work, you know?
Yeah. You mean like your camera sitting on a 2x4?
It actually works. I was actually pretty impressed with myself. I was like, man, I'm like a modern day MacGyver.
Yeah, there we go.
But yeah, so luckily we were able to kind of get this together anyways, you know, and I appreciate your guys' patience. I'm like, oh man, they're just going to walk out the door here pretty quick and then this is going to be all for naught. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys being here. So I just want to start with you, Kyle. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and your story and kind of why we're here having this conversation.
All right. So, a whole bunch of questions. My name is Kyle Mindiola. 35 years old, been married for plus 10 years, my wife.
Dang, that's good. Congrats, man.
Thanks. We're both Air Force veterans. I got two kids, daughter Kaylee, she's 10, and my son Cooper, he's 6. Jeez.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's just a whirlwind.
Mm-hmm.
Kids are awesome.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely test you. But a good dose of reality of, I guess, how you were.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
You learn to give and play. And, I mean, one big thing, you know, with being in the outdoors and, you know, definitely in the archery and stuff, it's both my kids shoot bows, and it's funny just watching them have fun and, you know, go crazy on stuff.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so, I mean, I don't know, the reason we're here, I guess myself and Adam are both veterans. And I was security forces in the Air Force for 5 years. For those of you who don't know, security forces is basically like military police for the Air Force. That's
okay.
Kind of how everybody lets it know. But a lot of our stuff isn't mostly law enforcement. It's a lot more security side, just because with aircrafts and everything.
Yeah.
Within 6 months of getting to my first duty station, I deployed to Balad, Iraq. We took over for the Army doing QRF, which is a quick reaction force, and then IRF, which is immediate response force to off the installation and then gate security and stuff. I got to be a turret gunner, so that was a little fun. You get to see the world from a different point of view.
Yeah.
throwing water candy, stuff to kids. It was kind of fun.
Right on. More specifically, as a turret gunner, what does that mean exactly?
So I was a 50 cal gunner on the top, that
Okay.
or a 240 gunner, which is a 7.62 round.
Yeah.
But
like
just,
on a Humvee or something?
yeah, yep,
Okay.
top of a Humvee. We were kind of the last generation of still rocked up armored Humvees, and then all the MRAPs and stuff started coming in.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, just going on patrols and different things,
Mhm.
taking care of what needed to be taken care of. So
Right.
and then came back from that, got back to my duty station, and then an opportunity opened up, which was I was stationed in Nebraska, and we have 4 747s there, which are known as the National Airborne Operations Center. So if you look it up, it's known as the Doomsday Jet, basically. So it's a 747 that is all analog controls, everything, and it's designed to withstand a nuclear blast.
Wow.
So I got to fly security on that, and then within that role entitled, we flew the Secretary of Defense around the world, and then different delegates. So
Okay.
when I served, we flew with Secretary Gates and then Secretary Panetta. So
Right on.
I'm kind of one of those individuals that got to travel the world, fortunately,
Yeah.
and see different things. But it was definitely eye-opening because we got to go to a lot of different countries. We landed at a lot of international airports and stuff, so I got to deal a lot with locals. Weren't really doing military operations, as it was. So, but whenever we got to travel, I got to invest myself into local culture. So go to a lot of local markets, just see how individuals lived around. And, one big takeaway was that no matter where I was, somebody was always willing to help me. So it was, one big thing was just like, you're just another human trying to help another human. So,
Right.
break it down and you're like, awesome. Granted, we couldn't understand each other's language, a lot of pointing signal, and everything, but it was just fun to experience that and then come back, to the U.S. and you see people blowing up problems on whatever. And you're just like, man, it's so simple.
Yeah.
Just be nice to each other
Yeah.
and help people out.
Yeah.
So, so when I was in, I met my wife. We had our daughter. She was born when we were still in, and then we both kind of agreed that we wanted to do the family thing. So separated, and then big rigmarole of started a business. My wife was going to nursing school, and working 6.5 days a week, 12-hour days. I got to see my daughter basically in the middle of the night. So my wife was like, hey, it's either the family or the business. And, I feel you only get one shot with the family. You can start a business doing anything. So sold my business and then went back to school. It was kind of that Billy Madison thing where I'm 20-something-year-old, going to school with a bunch of 18-year-olds at the community college. And I'm like, hey, I'm trying to learn my profession. But went to school for machining. So I'm a tool and die maker machinist. And then got myself into that career. And that's how landed meeting Adam.
Okay.
We worked at the same company for a while, and then I actually started and then found out Adam worked there, but he was in the Guard, so Adam would be gone for 2 months at a time or whatever. So randomly this guy would come back to work, and I'm like, hey, I'm your coworker. And then we found out that our wives were actually pregnant at the same time, so it was kind of crazy. So we were actually, and I think they were due within like weeks apart. So it was kind of cool. We were both on like baby countdown. It was just like, and so that was just super cool getting to know each other. Our families were super close with age of kids and stuff like that. So it just worked out. And then we went from there and then,
started this.
Yeah, started this. So, but
Cool.
so it was fun. So I know we'll get a little bit more into what we're doing, but
for sure. And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and he was talking about a friend of his who had a few tours, and I was just thinking about how, just wild it is to think about the things that you've seen, both of you have probably seen, and then and then I wake up and, get up out of bed and go eat a bowl of cereal and stuff and can't even fathom what it would be like to be in those types of situations.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's just kind of it's like, wow, like you said, it is pretty simple.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Relatively speaking, you have those moments where you're just like, at your wit's end because there's so many different things going on, or, anxiety sets in because of something or whatever it may be. And then it's like, then I think about that and it's like, well, pretty blessed.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I hate to quote another podcast, but I know Rogan always says your worst day is your worst day, compared to somebody else's. So it's
right.
That the one thing I hate is, and I believe hate's a pretty strong word, but it's when you have veterans or military members comparing themselves to the next person of what you did, what you did.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny when, it's the joke is how do you know if you're standing in a room with a pilot? It's he'll tell you that he's a pilot, where a special forces member, you'll never know who that individual is. You know, they just go to work, do their thing, and move on. So it's you have individuals that have been through serious situations, and then come home. It's like you said, it's you still got to learn to flow yourself into everyday life.
Yeah.
And that's where we're obviously seeing, more and more veterans with PTSD and everything. But, I think it's definitely changing to the atmosphere of people talking, speaking, being more approachable on those type of situations. And so, people are willing to ask for help or, just spark a conversation, with somebody else. And it is the craziest thing on just the candid conversations you have with other veterans, especially when we go to 3D shoots and stuff like that. And you start talking with another veteran, and it's just 90% of the time you've had very similar situations. So it's just you click and you're like, yeah, man, I was there too. Or, yeah, I had this, mine was like this, but, it's very similar. But then it's on the other side, if you connect with a civilian on something, I mean, it's we both have families, we both, raise kids. It's I've been to the thing where it's your wife's pregnant, it's 3 a.m. and she wants popsicles. It's you're getting your ass out of bed and you're going to go get her something, So it's no matter how you look at it, everyone's had very similar situations, and it's it's that, how you mesh, how you make things work is, the most important thing. So
I'm curious. I've always kind of wondered this, I guess, too, because, when you had mentioned PTSD and, do you see, does somebody necessarily have to have a traumatic experience in the military to have PTSD, or can it be a situation where it's because you're kind of ingrained in this environment for so long and you get used to the routine and you get used to having, all of this direction all of the time, and then now it's you're out and you're in the, I don't know if the real world is the right word to use, but you're no longer in the military, and now you don't have somebody barking things at you. And again, please correct me if I'm being naive about what I'm saying, but now it's all of a sudden you have to merge into society without that. And would you say that creates some PTSD with veterans as well?
Yeah, I could see that. I know a couple people personally who've retired from the military and then they end up getting in a bunch of trouble because they don't have that structure of their life. And when I was in Missouri this past summer for 8 weeks, one of my instructors retired. I think he was Navy, but he mentioned one thing that I've never really thought about. And he's being in the military is so easy. It's the easiest job on the planet. You're told what to do, where to go, what to wear. He's when you're a civilian and you're retired, he's now I actually have to decide what I'm going to wear today.
Right, right.
Or it's easy to get up and just put a uniform on and, that's your day. But, so I was just thinking about that. That would be kind of tough. Actually figuring out what I'm wearing that day instead of just putting my uniform on. So
yeah,
you do. I mean, there's a lot of things though. The transition is hard for a lot of people.
Yeah,
sure.
So it is a thing where it's a lot easier for some people to just sign your name to extend your contract versus the saying grass is greener on the other side. It's transitioning out of the military can be quite hard for a lot of people. So that's where you see a lot of veterans where they, go back home or, separate out, and then they just, become a stay-home individual because they don't want. It's not that they don't want to. It's just a lot of people don't know how to interact with the civilian population, and it's.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at it. I don't know what numbers are, but I'm sure you could at least 1 in 5 people will be a veteran if you some sort looking out there and stuff. I know they say what is it? It's now 1%, 3% of the population is military, but I think it's also if you go to the pickleball court, you probably aren't going to find too many veterans there, but you go somewhere in the outdoors, I mean, you're going to find someone. You know? I mean, it's just they ingrain themselves in what they're doing. But the transition part, and I hate the whole like stigma of like PTSD or PTSS. You put a title on it. It's just like it can be traumatic for somebody, and whatever it is.
Right.
Or, going to a 40-hour job after you get out of the military, it's like it sucks. You're kept to a certain schedule. On the other side of it, though, it's like military, you're told what to do, where to, all that stuff. But regular clocking in at a job, some people like it, some people don't. It's just like now you're held to way too many restrictions. It's like you're late for work. Cool. Now you're going to get reprimanded.
Right.
A lot of that stuff where it's like in the military, it's like you get reprimanded by physical activity. But you're not getting fired from the military.
Right.
Yeah.
Where like you could lose your source of income. In the regular civilian world. So that's a big thing. Like you have to have the ability to hold yourself accountable, when you come out, I believe even more, than versus in the military. It's kind of, they tend to turn a blind eye for some situations. So.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah, because I had never really thought about that, but my sister-in-law, I think she was 20 years, I think she was in the military, and she was talking a little bit about that. Well, she wasn't, but my wife was talking a little bit about her transition and just how, again, that's what she had noticed was it was difficult because, my wife was like, hey, it's great to have you back. Let's go grab a bite to eat. Where do you want to go? And she's like,
the chow hall.
You know what I mean? She's not, it's like, and my wife was like, well, what's wrong? Everything okay? And she's like, I don't know. I'm not used to having to make decisions.
Yeah.
Just the simplest things. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. I never, would have thought about that, but it makes perfect sense. So, and like you said, we'll get a little bit more into that. But we'll move over here to Adam. What about you, man? What's your story?
Yeah. So, I'm Adam Erb. I'm 32, I think.
Young bucks. Yeah. Young bucks.
Married to my wife, Danielle. We had our 10-year wedding anniversary this past summer.
Wow. Good job.
Which was awesome. I have 2 daughters. Eliana, she's 10 now, and Riley, she'll be 6 next weekend.
Okay. Gosh, I'm 10 and 6 for you too.
Yeah, exactly the same. It's super crazy.
Yeah.
I can't imagine why you guys are friends.
Yeah, and they get along great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's kind of my family life. But I've been in the military since 2010. I joined in May of 2010. Deployed with the 1st Brigade out of Minnesota here to Iraq and Kuwait, which was an absolute blast. I loved every minute of that.
Oh, really? That's
cool.
Yeah,
I think about it all the time. Like, some of the things that it's easy. Like he said, it's just easy. Like, what are you doing today? I'm just going to make it to the next meal. Like literally, that's how you think about it.
You can't go home when you're deployed.
Yeah.
So it's like you're there.
Yeah.
And you're just guess you're going to make the best of it. And then you just find out like
you're forced to like solve the problem. You can't just like get in your car and drive away. It doesn't work that way. I had a blast over there. Made a lot of really good friends that I still talk to today, and I think that kind of like drove my career in a fortunate way for me. I was a 19 kilo or a tanker for about 9 years, and then my wife kind of made me make a decision. Either it was because I was having a hard time being like traditional guardsman, and then having a civilian job. And like you'd come back from whatever doing army stuff, and I'd always have to take like a day to just kind of like reset my brain to like I can't just go to work and yell at people. Like it doesn't work that way.
Right.
And the civilian side, we're in the army, that's just Tuesday, man. Yeah. And so we decided either it's going to be like you're just going to get out, or we're going to make this like a full-time thing.
Right.
So found a job through my brother. He works on the same team I do now, but now I'm full-time guard, AGR they call it, or Title 32. That's my Monday through Friday job. I don't clock in or nothing like that. I get to work, I throw a uniform on, I do my job. So I was a 74 Delta, a Seaburn specialist for a couple of years, and then this past summer I just accepted a job on the same team as a 25 Bravo, or an information systems specialist, or analyst I think it is. But so now I kind of went from like the shooting stuff and like playing with really big guns to like playing with really nasty chemicals and stuff to like now I get to like do IT stuff, which is really what I enjoy.
Sure.
But like coming into Kyle, like I was a tool and die maker with him before I took my full-time job here. And like he said, I think I was doing something with the guard, or I wasn't at work for a while. I was probably an AT or something. But I heard that we hired this new kid. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And they're like, he's in the Air Force. I'm like, oh boy, this will be fun. But it worked out. There's always the inner branch, like sticking each other, jabs and whatnot, because the Air Force is the Air Force and the Army's the Army. But now that I work with like a bunch of Air Force people, I really enjoy it. I kind of wish I was in the Air Force personally. Life would have been a little bit easier, but like I didn't really grow up like in the outdoors or not. I'd shoot my pellet gun or whatever, but like I never went camping. I haven't gone hunting until I turned 30. Like it just wasn't a thing. But then I met Kyle, and he was nagging me to do this like archery thing, and I was pretty big into precision rifle at the time, and I'm like, well, that's not impressive. Like bows don't impress me, big rifles do. You know? And my youngest daughter, she was getting older, and like the PRS side of the house was taking over more and more time and more money, and so I gave up PRS to kind of focus on my family. But like there was always just something like behind me that I was just like nagging me to like do something. And so finally, after like 2 years of Kyle nagging me about archery, I was like, fine, I'll do it. Like we'll try this thing. And so got a bow. I think it was like a Matthews Tactic, I think was the bow I had. And the great bow, loved it, and realized like out on the archery range, like even if it's just a static range, it wasn't necessarily 3D or hunting at that point, archery was giving me what PRS was giving me at the time, and I just didn't know that precision rifle was actually doing something for me.
Right.
And I get my bullets back, which is awesome. And I can do it in my backyard, which is even better. So like, you
don't have to travel.
I don't have to travel. I don't have to drive up north to go shoot a mile. It's like I can just shoot 40 yards in my backyard, or it doesn't matter. So I guess that's kind of my little short story of how me and Kyle met, I guess. And then the Archery Origins thing just kind of came out of that. I know like we were both working with a different nonprofit at the time when I first came in, and saw some things with that nonprofit that we didn't necessarily agree with, and kind of wanted to go our own route and do a nonprofit that was more focused around like veterans and PTSD and the sport of archery, not necessarily just hunting.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's people that shoot archery all the time that all they do is shoot target or 3D.
Exactly.
Or you get the big bow hunter guys that only shoot their bow once a year, and they walk out to their food plot and boom, archery season's done for them. So it was just, I think it was just a natural thing as we progressed in our friendship, and then we decided, hey, let's do this thing. So we got a bunch of people together and just said, all right, let's just do it. And I've never run a business before. I don't know anything about that. I've never run a nonprofit before. So in the majority of the people on the board, or that are associated with AO, haven't either. So it's been a learning process for everybody. As we've progressed into what we are now. From where we came from, sitting in Kyle's basement and drinking some beers and with a couple of notepads, being like, okay,
let's record this on our phone.
What do we do next?
This is our meeting.
Like, do we have to like bring this meeting together or something? Does someone have a gavel? It was like that. Nobody knew. But give it a year now, like it's grown exponentially from where it was, and the relationships we've made with people, like with you guys here at Vapor Trail and Chris Ham with HHA, and all these awesome people we've met along the way, that now it's really fun to like go out to these 3D shoots. I'm a pretty big introvert. I don't really like talking to people. But like Bowfest was a blast when we did that in 21.
Yeah.
And HHA was there. We were up there. The Midwest Bowhunter guys, they were up there. And, that was 4 days of just like awesome. Like your family came up. My family came up. We were, walking around shooting the trails all day, and the family, they're playing in the pools. And, after we're done shooting, we'd go sit in the hot tub and
went out to dinner,
going
out to dinner as families, and then, so it's just, it's something that we can incorporate the families together too, so it's just super fun. So
yeah, I mean, you can't really bring your family to a PRS match, you go sit over there where you're behind the firing line,
watch me shoot.
The archery is, it's like all encompassing. Everybody can do it, and now my daughters are into it too, so, which I never thought would be a thing, but they see me out in the backyard shooting, and I usually have like my saddle set up in the tree just for, play with or whatnot. Now my daughter wants to get up there, so she's got her little harness. She like hooks in and she'll climb up there and just hang on the tree. She's like 6.
That's rad.
My neighbor's looking out the back window like, what is going on?
Man, that's really cool. So many things I want to say. Right, so you probably saw me over here. I was like kind of trying to sneak in some typing because I'll forget if I don't. So a couple things, and I'm gonna be a little bit all over the place here with some of this. But the main point that I wanted to make is when you were talking about how you guys became friends through archery and all of that, and that's probably a big part of the mantra of Archery Origins as well. And I'll let you guys kind of elaborate on that. But just how cool is it that. And I talk about this a lot on the podcast, and I just never really thought about it before until I started having these conversations. But it's just so cool that a bow, something like a sport like archery, can bring people together. And then it also has like so much therapeutic value. Yeah. And then not only that, there's a lot of things that could have therapeutic value. Like some people like to play video games, or some people like, what I mean? But this has way more benefits in so many other ways, right? And then even to the point where you're saying now it's brought your families together and the kids are getting into it, and it'll just be passed down, and it's not for everybody. Eventually, there might be a break in the link or whatever with that stuff, but it's just, to me, it's just so cool. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to have you guys on the podcast again, because I love how archery brings people together, and that's what the range is about, right? Because back in, when I was in my 20s and I was shooting leagues at some of the other ranges here in the metro and stuff, those are some of my favorite times. And I still have friends that I talk to this very day from those times, and everybody has different backgrounds, but we have a common interest, and we talk about, our families, so it's really cool, and I love all of that. When you were talking about the time and how much fun that you had when you were in Kuwait, I think about, so I play Call of Duty. So I'm like a couch commando. Right? But I'm not that guy that has these illusions that I'm a military person or I ever will be. You know what I mean? I aspired to be when I was a kid, but just that's another story, right? It just, my path went a different direction. But you see all the gear and you're like, man, it's like, wow, one day I just want to walk around in that gear.
No, you don't.
It's heavy.
Right? Exactly. Exactly. But then I go, that's where my brain was going. Cause then I think about even with some of the best hunting gear that is available to you, you have those moments where you're in the mountains and you're hoofing it up a hill and you're just dying, you're sweating, it's just hot, and you just want to start ripping everything off. You know what I mean? So I can't even imagine what that would be like. You're in the desert, no less.
Yeah.
And you can't really get away with not having sleeves,
correct,
right? Because you put yourself at risk. Yep. So
yeah, you just can't take layers off.
How?
You just sweat through it.
Yeah, I remember when we landed and it was super late at night. It was like 01, 02 in the morning, something like that. And they opened up the door to the plane and it was like 100 degrees out.
Yeah.
At 2 in the morning. I was like, shut that door and turn this train around. I'm not having this. And it was brutal because I think we flew in like the spring. From Minnesota, so it's like 60, 70 degrees, and you land a couple hours later, and it's like 110 degrees out. Then the sun comes out, and then it gets hotter.
Oof.
The big thing, though, is like you don't give it 2 weeks and you forget about it.
Yep.
Right,
like,
you acclimate, I'm sure. But
the other thing, too, it's like like you said before, you don't have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
You can't call mom to come pick you up, from summer camp. It's like you're sweating your ass off, and then you just deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the acclimation thing, when you're like, oh, cool, it's 80 degrees right now. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Then it drops to 50, when the sun goes down, and you're like, oh, I'm freezing my ass off.
Yeah.
And you're like, but then in the military, it's different than civilian world where you're like, yeah, let me put layers on. When you're in the military, you're like, you can't wear that jacket with those shorts. And you're like, okay, I'm going to freeze my ass off.
Right.
So it's,
it's. I think the weirdest thing was like on the topic of like temperature is like the sun will go down and it's 80 degrees out and you're out at the smoke pit in sweatpants and a sweatshirt shivering, because 3 hours ago it was 120 degrees out,
Right.
And that was the weird thing for me, was just acclimating to the temperature. And like Kyle said, like give it 2 weeks, give it a month, and it's just a normal day. You walk outside and it's 100 degrees out. It's nice out.
Yeah.
Nice cool day today. It's the cheesy adage of, oh, at least it's a dry heat. Yeah, at least it was, because man, in the middle of Kuwait, like out in the desert, it's 120 degrees, but there's no humidity, so you're not necessarily just sweating like crazy.
Right.
Now you go inside your tent where it's 60 degrees. Now you're sweating, or vice versa. You walk out of your tent, now you're soaking wet.
Mm-hmm.
But
the weirdest thing is walking to the shower, you're sweating. You take a shower.
Yeah.
By the time you walk from the showers back to your hooch, you're sweating.
Yeah.
You're like, well, that was pointless. That was fun.
Yeah.
that is probably the worst part of it, was like walking to the shower shack, which is 100 yards, 200 yards away, and you're just gross and nasty. You just came off mission or whatever, and you want to go have an awesome shower. So you get in, you have 45-minute long shower, get all clean, you walk outside, and there's a sandstorm. Awesome.
Or you walk in and you don't have hot water.
Or there's no hot
water. So
water.
you're just in a cold shower.
So now you're having a cold shower. Yeah. And it's, but it's just one of those things, like I mentioned earlier, you got to take it at face value.
Right.
You're not going to change it. Why complain about it? Which is what the military does anyways. I mean, it could be the perfect day. Somebody in the military is we're going to find something to complain about, just because it's a way of passing time.
I was going to say, it's a therapeutic thing too. I'm sure.
There's also the other thing though too, when you think about it, like how many guys are on outposts that didn't have showers.
Yeah.
So they're doing baby wipes or dumping water bottle in your head, and that's your shower. So it's like, when you look at it as a perspective, it's like, it was pretty nice. I had a hooch that had air conditioning. Like you go back and where there's other guys and you hear about their deployments, you're like, man, that sucked when you were, and you're like, I would guess I was pretty fortunate where I was.
Yeah.
Right.
All the complaining we did about it was, for nothing, because we were pretty fortunate compared to a lot of people. So
yeah. Well, I'll take sitting on the couch and getting humbled by a bunch of 15-year-olds calling me bruh.
Yeah.
And then respawning because they're just
making fun of me because I suck. It's just like, I won't admit to you that I'm old enough to be your dad.
Yeah, right.
And I probably should be doing something more productive. Not an addict by any means, but
so many things I should be doing, but I'm really gonna get these 15-year-old kids.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, they make me mad. It's like, what kind of cheat code did you put into this game? Because I don't know how that just happened.
Coming from the days when we actually had cheat codes for video games,
right?
Can't
Right.
do that.
That's wild. So as you both know, this is an archery podcast, and so I'm just curious. Now, Adam, you already kind of talked about it, but Kyle, tell us a little bit about what got you into shooting a bow.
So, like every Midwest kid, when I was in high school, I think, early high school, I went with my dad to a Whitetails Unlimited dinner. So it's just one of those things that, like, somebody knows somebody, and guess what? We have an open ticket. You guys need to come. So it's the kind of thing where, we got invited to one, and it was one of those things that I ended up winning a forged bow in a raffle.
Right on.
So, which is crazy because Forge. So I'm originally from outside Milwaukee, and that's where Forge is from.
Yeah.
So I won a bow, and ended up taking it the pro shop or factory, whatever, it was like 20 minutes from my parents' house.
Sure.
So I took the bow there, and I was in high school, and it was a full adult bow, so I went there, and they had different limbs and everything, and so I actually set that bow up for me, and I was like, sweet, this is cool. But my dad bow hunted a long time ago, but when I was growing up, I never saw it. It was just this bow that sat in the basement. I just like every kid that would go take his arrows and shoot them in the sky and try to run away from them, you know. So I had never really had a directive on like bow hunting. I grew up gun hunting, you know, deer and everything in Wisconsin. So the typical 1 week a year kind of thing like that.
Right.
I grew up pheasant hunting too, but that was just totally different. But have never had a directive of like bow hunting. So I got this bow and went out to my uncle's property in southwest Wisconsin, and where we gun hunted. And you know, my uncle's like, "Go for it, go try to shoot a deer." So sat in one of our stands and everything, and had a doe come in, and she was at like 20 yards, and I was like, "This is cool." I mean, you're sitting there waiting for nature to do its thing. And it would have been early season when it was, and I drew back and had no idea about arrows, you know, anything like that. And so I shot. She jumped the string, and was probably the greatest thing that ever happened to me, because finding out I was like not set up at all. My sight was like dialed in maybe at 20 yards, you know, but I just had no clue what I was doing.
Yeah.
But after that happened, like the adrenaline, everything, and I'm like, this is freaking cool. I want to do this.
Yeah.
And so then I got a hang-on stand, and, you know, sat a couple more times, and then that was at the same point where I'm like, hey, I'm going to join the military. And so then I went and joined the military, and it was a thing where just constantly be gone with my job I had when I was there. I was gone like 25 days of the year. Or 25 days of every month. So I was like, come home, quick turnaround. So it was, in all honesty, would come home, party hard with friends, and then it was like, go back to another mission kind of thing like that. So it was, but now looking back at it, I was in Nebraska. I probably had prime hunting property I could have been on, you know, like not knowing anything. Now it's like, hey, your parents had property down here? You know, where's that farm kind of thing? But,
yeah.
But I always had my bow, so I would like move it. And so it was like, in the barracks, you couldn't have weapons. So it was like either guns or bows or anything like that. So like on base, you couldn't. So I always had friends that lived off base, and I'd leave all my stuff there. But it just was never like a topic of conversation of like hunting or anything like that. So it was just this bow. Every time we'd move, I'd just keep moving it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was one of those things where finally separated out of the military, and it was like moving into our house and stuff. You know, my wife's like, what are you going to do with that thing? You know, like, get rid of it. You know, we don't have room for it, or, you know, use it or whatever. And then it was, being out of the military was that thing where, like Adam said, it was just like, I had this feeling in me, you know, that I just like, something was missing. I didn't know what it was. Now, part of it was, you know, we moved out of state. Well, we temporarily moved up to Minnesota. Now we do reside back in Wisconsin, but it was just new setting, new environment. Didn't really know people. I knew Adam, but we would work together for, you know, 3 months or whatever, and then he'd be gone. And so it was kind of like just this working relationship we had. Didn't really know anybody else, and it was, you know, something where it was just like, hey, I got this bow. Let me pull this thing out and, you know, try shooting it again. You know, and so I went and bought a target and started shooting in the backyard, and I'm like, man, I miss this. You know, like, but then it was a thing, it's like, I was having fun doing it, but I didn't have, you know, a group or, you know, people to be with. So it was actually pretty fortunate that I don't even remember how it happened, but I found out about HHA USA. And it was like, that was the very first year that Chris started doing it as HHA USA. So Chris Ham's one of the co-owners of HHA Sports.
Yeah.
And there was a shoot down at Warren's, Wisconsin. And I think I shot Chris a message on Instagram. I'm like, hey, do you mind if I come down? I've never shot 3D or anything like that. And I'm like, do you mind if I come down and just walk with you and see what this is all about?
Yeah.
And it was, I didn't know who to reach out to. So the fact that some random guy is shooting a direct message to the owner of a site company is just baffling to me. You know? But the fact that, like, he's like, yeah, no problem, come down.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went and walked around with him, and he shot with there's a group of guys and everything, and was walking through, and I'm like, oh, this is like golf, but for outdoor people. And I'm like, you're just shooting at that thing? And you're like, yeah. And you guys are just having fun? And you're like, yeah, this is awesome. In comparison to it, where I came from, so when I got out, I was manager of a gun shop and stuff, so I was shooting guns all the time. But you take someone to the gun range, it's loud, you loaded magazines, it's whatever, but it's a loud environment, and it's the kind of thing where, like, you're both there doing the thing, but you're not, like, doing it together kind of thing like that. Whereas, like, when I was on the archery range, walking a 3D event, it's like person A, walks up to shoot, and you're either razzing them or whatever, but they shoot, and you're having a good time. Depending on what you're doing, you're either trying to throw someone off just because you want to, or you're like, I'm going to watch this guy shoot because he knows what he's doing. And then meeting the individuals that are at those shoots, and you find out you're like, oh, we're all the same, at the end of the day. And the biggest thing is, like, we both love archery, and so it's being in that environment. And then fortunate with Chris, when I was talking to him, and then with a nonprofit we were at before, that Chris was like, hey, we're 100% on board. We'll get you guys sites. We'll, for all your students' bows and stuff like that. And then when I approached him with Archery Origins and what Adam and I had the idea of, and then, what we wanted to do, he, just stepped aside, and he's like, I'm with you guys 100%. So that was like the biggest thing is for us is because, one, with him running his nonprofit, that, he's got an idea of what's going on, but two, just the overall of bringing veterans together, in the archery world, bringing them to established events, and stuff like that was just like awesome for us, because it's like, hey, we're going to bring our group of veterans, and we're guaranteed we're going to meet other veterans. We're going to have a blast doing this. We're going to have fun. We're going to break away. Either we're going to see you guys at the next shoot kind of thing like that, or it's you still have someone where you can connect to, kind of like that. And it's doesn't matter what state you're at, but you can, and the nicest thing about, social media and stuff like that is you can still see what they're doing. So you're like, cool, this guy's still shooting, or something like that. Or it's, I've had the other thing too where you've seen guys and they're not, either A, guys don't post stuff, whatever, or, haven't shot, and you like reach out to someone and you're like, hey, what's going on? And if someone's like, oh man, I've been in a kind of lull and stuff like that, and you're just like, let's talk about it. What's going on? Hey man, I got a family too. I get it. It's rough. The economy's garbage right now. I get it. Is there anything we can help with? I wish I could just send money out to friends, when they're having hard financial times. But all I can really do is just, give someone a little bit of hope of like, I've been there. This is how I did it. I went and saw a therapist for a while. It was something I was struggling with some stuff, and I'm not ashamed of it because that individual helped me get through some things that I was dealing with. And so it's a thing where I can approach guys and I'm like, hey, I went and saw somebody. It's perfectly fine. If you have a problem with it, I understand that stigma of it. Let's talk. See if there's something that I went through that I can hear from you, and this is what worked for me, try doing it, and try to walk someone through it. And it's just that thing of like the camaraderie around it is just amazing. And it's the friendships you grow out of it, and it's just at the end of the day, like I said, when I was traveling the world, and I got to meet other people, from different cultures, and they just cared about each other. It's like the archery world is huge with that, where it's like everybody just wants to help everybody. So and it's not this whole I shot 180, 180 deer. I shot a 200 deer. It's like you're getting there in your range and you're like, we're both shooting together. Let's have fun. And then when someone shoots a tree, then you razz that guy because it's fun. But
well, this is perfect because you're segueing right into obviously the next thing that we want to talk about, and that's how I met you guys. I've known Chris for a very long time, and talking about Chris Ham of HHA again, and when you had reached out to me, I get a lot of these requests. I think we talked about that before. I get a lot of these requests, and it's hard to sift through them. Some people have a really like attractive facade, but after you agree to work with them in some aspect, you find out that that's not real, and so it's hard to know what's real and what's not, and just the fact that you had Chris, in your court was huge. And then, so it's like, yeah, let's meet up, and so you guys came up here to the shop and we sat in this room and we had a conversation, and immediately same thing. I was just like, yeah, well, we want to do this, and the only hesitation I had was that I just had to run it by the CEO, which again, he was just like, why are you even asking me this? Do it, don't ask that, do it, So, and I'm just like, hey man, I just want to make sure. But, so, it was a no-brainer for me. And, so I'll kind of let you get into that a little bit more into detail. You guys can kind of figure out how you want to discuss it. But tell us about Archery Origins and why you decided to start that project.
Sure. Well, I guess we'll start from the beginning. So like we both kind of mentioned earlier, we were working with another nonprofit at the time. And, great group of guys, great organization. But for him and I, it just seemed like that organization was like strictly all about hunting and not necessarily like teaching people how to shoot. It's here's a plot of land, here's your bow, go get them.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, and that was my first experience. I don't know how to hunt. I don't know how to bow hunt.
Mm-hmm.
I just assume you just climb in a tree and just wait.
Right.
That's all I knew about hunting.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, years later, you come to realize there's a hell of a lot more to it than just climbing up in a tree and waiting there. But, so yeah, we decided that really wasn't something that, we really enjoyed. And, Kyle was shooting 3D and kept trying to get me to do 3D, stubborn as I am. I always said, I got something else going on or whatever. And actually went out and shot a 3D shoot. I think the first one I did was at South 40 and had a blast. That was so much fun. Mm-hmm. Like you're just walking with a group of guys and just chit-chatting, or you're razzing guys that are shooting because that's fun. Everybody in the military likes to do that. And, you meet these guys for the first time and it's like your best buddies. Yeah. And so we decided, hey, let's start, our own nonprofit focused on the sport, the entire sport of archery, like Archery Origins, and so, you get your bow and we'll teach you how to shoot it. If you want to go hunting, we'll teach you about hunting and take you hunting. You don't like that? That's fine. You want to shoot 3D? Awesome. Let's go shoot 3D courses. We got 3 or 4 of them right here. What one do you want to go to? Mm-hmm. If that's not your thing, you want to shoot target archery? Okay, cool. Let's do that too. I just enjoy shooting. I don't care what I'm shooting at. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, we founded Archery Origins as a way to kind of take something that both him and I experienced, got something out of archery that we didn't necessarily know we were even missing. Mm-hmm. And decided, hey, let's build this thing to give that to other veterans that maybe they don't know they're missing something, but you get behind a bow sight and nothing in the world matters except for breaking that shot off clean. You know, it's like that finite moment in time where everything in the world is perfect. Mm-hmm. It's like right before you crack that trigger. That's what does it for me. It's like you could be the worst day on your life, of your life, but I've never had a bad day on the range. Yeah. So that's why I decided to do it, I guess. Mm-hmm. Kyle, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like what we said, it's like that therapeutic that you get from archery is just crazy, and you don't know until you do it. Mm-hmm. And it's like you said, podcast after podcast after podcast. Everyone says the same thing about archery. It's just that it's like when you're in the moment, you're just having fun. And how many times, we've been out on shoots and stuff, and it's just what Adam was saying about when he was deployed, and you're just having a blast with your buddies because that's where you are. Yeah. That's like the same thing that happens when you're shooting. It's like you're all there together, you're all doing the same thing, so make the best of it. You just have fun. Yeah. And I mean, I've been on 3D courses though too, where Adam blows his bow up.
Yep, that happened.
And fortunately, the clubhouse
had a bow press.
Had a bow press, and Jake from HHA was there, and I'm like, Jake, can you do something with this? And he got him going, but it was enough to just go, finish shooting. Or man, I had one other crappy situation. We were at a shoot, and a friend of mine got a phone call that another friend of his passed away. And that was like, you feel helpless.
Right.
I mean, because it's, just seeing somebody go through that is like the worst thing. But knowing that it just happened that I was there, at this, situation, if he would have been at home doing whatever, alone or whatever, but I was just there, and I'm just like, how can I help, get through this? Granted, we didn't go back out and shoot, it was one of those things, but just sitting down with him at a picnic table, and just talking, and, I just needed to listen.
Yep.
He's, just letting it all out, and I'm just like, yeah, man, tell me, keep talking, and it's so, the goods and the bads, but it's the thing is, knowing that I was there to just try to give a little assistance to somebody, it was like a huge thing. So it's not necessarily about putting your arrow on target. It's the conversations, the things that you get out of it behind the bow is the biggest take back from me. So taking that, and what we talked about before is like PTSD, so you get a lot of these individuals that are introverts, or don't know how to affiliate themselves into, the archery world. I met a vet last night, and I was talking with him, and I asked him about, if he does archery and stuff like that, or, does hunting, and he said he did it when he was a kid, but he didn't know how to get back into it now, and has wanted. And I'm like, man, let me tell you what I got. So it was,
you met the right guy.
But it's a thing where it's like, I've learned just that simple question of, hey, do you shoot archery? And it's the point of why we focus for veterans is twofold. It's like, one, I'm trying to grow my Rolodex of friends because it is very weird, but when you get veterans together or military members together, you click. Everyone's got that chip on that shoulder. Everybody kind of understands each other.
Yeah.
You understand, dark humor. It's just a weird thing. We laugh at shitty situations because everybody's kind of been in them. When I've been at other situations where you have like veterans and civilians. It's just how we break things up. But you're in a group and you're talking, and you can see the facial features of like civilians when you're talking about stuff, and like veterans are in there just laughing. You see civilians where they're just like, like questioning if they should like laugh at something or whatever. And you're like, man, that's why I prefer to hang out with these individuals. It's just because they get me, or I get them, So then when we're in that of teaching somebody something, it's being in the military, you're always used to being like told how to do stuff. So like you listen, you just kind of need someone to instruct you through it.
Yeah.
But with us, with Archery Origins is we'll get a student, we'll do a one-on-one class with them for, to teach them step by step on, how we're going to do it. But we work on their schedule. I work 40 hours a week, student could work 40 hours a week, so we're going to get it. We have families, my kids do dance and jiu-jitsu. So it's a thing of like, hey, man, I can't do it on Tuesdays, Thursdays. What's your schedule like? We got a buddy that's a student that's in the class, call him students, whatever. He's another adult. But his kids play hockey. So his schedule's like super limited. Yeah. So it's a thing where we're like, we haven't been together for like 2 months just because he's been in, constant that. But it's the other side is like, I'm not going to take away from your family time.
Yeah.
So we'll go on your progression too. So if you want to go shoot in your backyard or in your basement and go, doing whatever you can. I mean, Dudley's got awesome stuff with School of Knock where you could walk through and teach yourself on it. But it's also the thing of like just checking in with someone, getting there, and I'm like, hey, let's shoot for an hour, have fun, and just kind of watch the mechanics of what's going on, tweak a little bit things. But I'm not trying to teach somebody how to be an Olympic shooter. I have no clue what's going on. I punch my trigger all the time. You know what I mean? But it's a thing of like, all I'm doing is just trying to push this individual, to where they want to go, where they want to be.
Right.
And then like Adam was saying, we've been very fortunate. We've gotten permission to hunt on various farms in Wisconsin and Minnesota. Myself and James were both Wisconsin residents. Adam, Chaz, and Ben are Minnesota residents. And then we have Jeff, who is down in Kansas. So he's kind of our extension guy. But that's also a thing where if this starts taking off, Jeff's going to be our first guy that's out of state that's going to start a new chapter.
Okay.
You know, so it's kind of our 5-year plan of like, he's in there with us, but he did live up here in Hudson and then moved down there. But, I mean, the craziest thing, though, is that when we make them our meetings, when we have meetings, but one of our guys, they have a pool. So we knocked out a meeting and the kids were playing in the pool, you know, with the wives this summer. So we did it twofold. You know, we did a cookout, but we got the families together. You know, we all had fun, but then we knocked out a meeting. So, I mean, that was like the best thing is like we're trying to bring these individuals together because it's what we have, you know. And I mean, we get together, our kids can all play together. Like, it's fun. Yeah. You know, and then more often than not, we start talking archery, you know, and our wives are like, oh, you guys are talking about that again. You know, I'm like, look at Adam's new bow, you know, and they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, but it's different than last year's model. Let's you know, check it out. So it's the cool thing of like, that's what we get, you know, entrenched in. Or, you know, one of our guys, Chaz, was out hunting elk in, was it Montana or whatever? But it's just, you know, like you said, hearing about, you know, the hunts and stuff like that. It's like, that's what we care about. You know, it's like, I don't watch sports. I'll watch Formula One racing and I'll watch Supercross, but I don't know what teams are in the playoff for the football. I'm one of those weird guys. But
I don't either.
But it's a thing where it's like we get together on a Sunday. It's like I don't know what sports are on, but we'll sit here, we'll talk, we'll have fun, you know, whatever. You know, Adam's going to tell me about his 6 weeks. He was down in Kansas, Missouri, not having fun, but it's still interesting to me because he's still in the military. So it's like, tell me about that, you know, what's going on. So it's what we do, you know, with getting students in. I was going to say it's very different. I guess it's not ideal on how other nonprofits do. You know, it's right now at the point where we're at, we're still new about it. We're still trying to get individuals to, you know, get signed up. More often than not, it's word of mouth, but you know, it's more so like I seek individuals out because it's like, hey, you know, that guy that I was talking about last night, he rolls jiu-jitsu at the same gym I do. He just ended up knows my future brother-in-law. It's just like a super small world, but it's a thing where I'm like, dude, let's go. You know, like how many guys I've met at jiu-jitsu that shoot archery and stuff, and you know, I'm like, you shoot bows? And they're like, yeah, I do. And I'm like, you like shoot a bow or you like shoot bows? Yeah. You know, like, because I'm that guy where 2 years ago went to every HHA USA shoot. I mean, we went to Bow Fest. It was crazy on
it was a busy year.
How much traveling we were doing. Yeah. And it was, if it wasn't an HHA shoot, it was a shoot at South 40. Yeah. You know, and it was just like stacked. And then my wife's like, all right, next year you kind of like got to settle down. Because it was like every 3D shoot from like April to season opener, and then I was hunting. You know, so it's like
every other weekend for a year
was just way too much. But the trips we had and how much fun we had was just awesome.
Just carpooling, you know, with all the guys, and it was a good time. It was really busy, but it was a blast. And like, was it this spring we did the Vortex thing, right? And then the HHA shoot the next day. Yeah. Like, that was a blast. And you brought your two buddies were out there who were vets, and I've never met these guys, but it was like we're old friends. Like, it was like we just clicked up right away. And we were best buddies that night when we were out having dinner, you know. Yeah. We did this Vortex tour and kind of shook hands and kissed babies with people. And then, you know, that night it's like, okay, well, now what? So we all went out to dinner and stayed out way too late for a shoot the next morning. But I had a blast that night. I had a blast the next day at the shoot until I blew my bow up.
You still had a blast after.
Still had a blast after.
Still shot long shot after.
Yeah. So it was a good time. It's just the whole community thing. It's like no matter where we go, we're going to have friends that are there or we're going to make new friends. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what AO is about.
It's really fun to see like the excitement that is on your faces when you guys talk about this. You know what I mean? Because it makes me think too. You know, I've got a close group of friends that we some of them hit like 4 or 5 of the major TACs. Oof. You know, and I'm lucky if I can get 1 or 2 really lucky, 1. You know, but when we go, it's, foam is home is like the main theme of the shoot, because it's just, that's what we're there to do. We're there to have fun. And like you, I'm introverted, so I have to kind of surround myself with extroverted people. Yep. And my other friend, Rick, is very, very outgoing. So, a perfect example is we were at Terry Peak this last year, and I've known him for 15 years, and I see him, he's like sitting, I know he's got a lot of friends, he knows a lot of people. So I see him sitting at this table, and there's, probably 15 people around this, table. And he was just over there talking, and I was kind of doing my own thing or whatever. And then at some point he had kind of waved me over. So I walked over there, and he's talking to these people. First time he's ever met them. He's not, you know what I mean? So it's like, I was like, oh my gosh, I thought you were like good buddies with these people all this time, you know? And again, it's all of that, just like pulling people in and having those conversations and just having a blast. And, I kind of see a parallel there with you guys and with my crew too. And when we were meeting and we were talking about things, I was just like, man, these are my people. You know what I mean? Cause and I very rarely I can't say that I've seen anybody shoot a bow that didn't like turn around and go, whoa, like that was cool, and sometimes, like you were saying, I think time would be the only limiting factor. Mm-hmm. If a person had the time, they would do it more, so I think that would be maybe the only thing that someone might drift away from it or something like that. But to me, it's super important because we're a very niche group of people. We're 1% of 1% of 1%, and so, it's just really cool to see what you guys are doing. And, matter of fact, we've got 5 bows here now that we are outfitting, getting them kind of geared up so that you guys can give those to your students to shoot. And to me, that's fantastic, because it used to be the poor man's sport, right? Mm-hmm. Not anymore. You know what I mean? Like it's wild how much money and you can spend a reasonable amount of money. You don't have to go crazy, but at the same time, some people might go, well, I'm not sure if I would like it. And so I don't want to, but for them just to get a bow in their hands and then start shooting it. And then they're most likely going to probably move into another one or want to upgrade. And then it's like, okay, well, these guys introduced me to this awesome sport, and they donated this bow to me. So I'm going to donate it either back or to somebody else, right? Do you ever see that happen? Is that usually what goes on?
Yeah, and I mean, that's the big reason why, so with HHA sites and then with your guys' stuff, which is awesome, is because it's like, so with their bows, they have solid equipment that they can take off and move to a flagship bow. Yeah. So that's the nice thing. I don't think we haven't received any bows back from students yet. I mean, we're still younger in this. Yeah. But I mean, you're not getting a $40 bow from, the sports goods store.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
They're getting a good bow that, that they can run out, the rest of their life if they want to. And more often than not, it's guys like Adam that were in a hobby of, shooting PRS, and then next thing you know, he shoots me a message. He's like, man, I sold all my stuff. He's like, I'm getting the new, Phase 4 from Matthews. And I'm like, okay. So it's, or you get the guys that are just like, that tinker and they want to try new stuff. So it's like, next thing you know, you look at somebody's bow and you're like, what did you do? Or like, going down this route of trying new stuff and everything. But that's also the best part of it, is because it's like, when you see that, you're like, you're hooked. Yeah. And so it's, I mean, they're starting with their bow that, we're starting them off with. So either they could run it out or, take stuff off and move it to the next thing, or recycle it to another veteran, and then they're, going full fledged. Now, when they do that though, then we try to work with whatever bow shops around their area, and try to get them, hooked up with something, try to get them a deal if we can, or if it's, hey, you don't need to buy this year's model. How about we find you, a used bow that somebody's, trying to offload, and it's like, cool, we can still get you, a discount on, a rest in the site, so it's, you're not having as much, invested into a setup, but it's a thing where it's like, we're going from 2006 technology to, 2022.
Yep.
You know, kind of thing like that. So it's awesome, but you know, there's a handful of guys when we go to, you know, different shoots and stuff like that, old timers, you know, roll up and you're like still shooting trad bows.
Yeah.
You know, and those guys are just ripping awesome, shooting 10s, and you're like, man. And I was given 2 trad bows from a family friend of ours that they had sitting at the bottom, sitting in the basement of the Moose Lodge, and gave me, and I bought 2 strings, and I still have yet to even shoot those bows, but part of me is like hesitant of like, I know I'm going to like this way too much.
Yeah.
And it's one less thing that I need to get involved in.
Right.
But it's a thing where one of those bows is a straight target bow that we have that you guys got.
Yep.
Or that's setting up. And it's one of those things of like, in case we do have that individual that does not want to do anything with hunting, but they want to go shoot target, you know, it's like, I got the perfect bow for you.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not a brand new bow, but if you look up on any forums, this bow is the bee's knees, and everybody loves it still. So I'm like, you still got a solid setup for it. Though.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's the equipment's great. You know, it's the kind of thing, you know, I mean, at this point in my life, you know, buy once, cry once kind of thing. But you also learn that, you know, there's certain things that you need. There's certain things that you can work away with, you know, but for someone that's new, first time, I mean, they're not going to know the difference between $100 and a $500 sight.
Exactly.
Correct. You know, but I'm not going to let them waste their money on something. You know, if we can work with the manufacturer and get them a discount on something, it's like, here's something that you're going to lifetime warranty on, and, you know, you're going to be able to utilize it no matter what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. So, there you have it, folks. I mean, if you are listening to this podcast, you probably already shoot a bow, but if you know somebody that, you know, if you know a veteran that could benefit from shooting a bow, you know, you want to reach out to these guys because they'll get that person set up at minimal cost, and you've got the teaching there. You got somebody backing you up on everything. You know what I mean? And I think similar to how Chris kind of took you under his wing, I feel like you're doing the same thing. You're emulating that, and I think that's the biggest part is people don't know where to start. You know, and so you guys are fostering that, and I love that, and that's an amazing thing. So, absolutely, yeah. And I mean, right now we're just located around the Twin Cities, Western Wisconsin is where we are, just because we want to have that one-on-one, you know, personability with people. Like I said, I'm just trying to grow my friendship group too. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we do know other archery organizations that we've gotten to meet. Through HHA USA and different things like that. So, I mean, if you're hearing this, if you're not located locally, but you do know a deserving veteran, reach out. We'll try to get you connected with, you know, a group closest to you, you know, because I don't want to turn anybody down.
Right.
You know, willing to help anybody out. You know, we can only work with what we have. But, you know, I don't want to miss that opportunity of somebody needs help or somebody could use the help, and we miss it, you know, and it's, you know, looking back at it, it's like, oh, you know, this really could have helped this individual. So, you know, reach out to us on our website, archeryorigins.org. There's an info link. You can hit that. Shoot us an email. Otherwise, on Instagram, we're on there, Archery Origins. Shoot us a DM and hit us up. You know, we'll definitely try to work with anybody. But, yeah, you mentioned it before. It's when someone shoots a bow for their first time or, you know, hits a target or whatever, and that smile that they get, you know, of making everything come together. It's like awesome. And you can't take that away. You know, it's a kid on Christmas, you know, opening a present that they wanted. It's like seeing that in an adult's face is awesome. Yeah. And it's like once you see that and you get that, you're like, you're hooked. Let's go. You know, and
yeah, I still get that. I shoot a lot of arrows, man, and I still get that way sometimes. I mean, we were just out there shooting, and he cranked off a shot. I'm like, wow, man, nice shot. It was actually a terrible shot. I just can't see 40 yards.
The form looked good, though.
I was like, what are you talking about, man? That was high left. Oh, all right, my bad. Good shot, though. Yeah. You know. But, yeah, I still get that way. I'm still giddy when I get to shoot. And unfortunately, as cold as it is here in the winter, I don't get to shoot as much as I'd prefer to. But I think after putting a couple holes in the wall through the old target in the basement, my wife, you're shooting outside from now on. So,
oh man, you gotta have the spackle on tap, man.
We just redid our basement a couple of years ago, and I thought it'd be a great idea to throw an old target up against the wall and shoot some arrows at it. And just that center dot, and it's just right through it, right into the wall.
Oh boy.
Like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Hang like a poster over it or something. I just outed myself.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, one other thing too, because I know you mentioned that it's more local.
Yep.
And I understand that. But what about other archers like nationwide that might want to donate some product? Like, what if they got a bow, or if they got some accessories that they would want to send? I'm assuming you guys would.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Down for that?
I mean,
yes.
Yeah, we'll definitely take it, no matter what it is. I mean, we'll take it. If we're not going to use it, we'll at least either get it to a kids group or something like that. But
sure,
everybody's got a pile of something that they're sitting in their basement, and it's working. Fortunately, our new partnership with you guys. So if we get an old bow, we'll get a new string on it. We'll get a good rest on it. We got a sight we can put on it. So I mean, we can take old stuff and make it new.
For sure.
So yeah, anything like that.
And for the record, I wouldn't be upset if somebody sent you a whisker biscuit and you put it on a bow. You know what I mean? It's all for the greater good to me. Sure. So it's not like, there needs to be exclusivity. It's just whatever you can get.
And we've had a lot of it too, where it's like we've started a student off with something, and then their kids get into it, and their kids just get the old stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm like, and they ask us, and I'm like, cool, let them use it.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it's for. If you're getting one more person in it, and now a father and son are starting a whole new relationship around archery, it's like, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it's about. It's just getting you out there to do it.
Yeah.
And if it's more than likely that the kids want to do it more than the parents do. So it's like, hey, let's go shoot. And you're like, all right, get you out of there. And then next thing you do, you run into them at a range and they're shooting together, and you're like, awesome.
Yeah.
This is what it's about.
Yeah.
And it's not just the relationship we have, but if you can start a new relationship with your, son or daughter. Adam said the same thing, but it's like we go shooting and it's just fun as a family environment.
Right.
So
for sure. Well, that's awesome what you guys are doing. And speaking of the relationship that you guys have with HHA, you guys made a film. Was it this past summer, or it launched? Well, I suppose the date's right on here.
Yeah, it was last year. We started.
Yeah.
We did our first filming at
5 months ago.
Yeah, at that first Vortex shoot, and then they did a second part at.
We were down on the farm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did some shooting, scouting, super early season scouting down there.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. So this podcast has been like a while in the making. We've been, because I think we talked about it almost right away.
Yeah.
But again, it's just trying to get together. You guys are an hour away, but so there is that HHA video. It's the Archery Origins story, and I'll put a link.
Cool.
In the video here, and then also in the description, so that people can go there and get a little bit more information. It's a great film. And just be prepared, have some tissues on you. It's a little bit of a tearjerker. And that's okay. That's what, that's a huge, some guys are like, well, I don't, and it's just like, hey man, let it out, let it go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what this is all about. It's about helping people. And like you were saying, your friend who had lost his friend, you were there for him in that moment, and that's beautiful. And this is a beautiful film. So I think everybody needs to go check that out just to get a better perspective as to what you guys are all about.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
And both you guys are in the film, right?
Yeah, we're in the film. Adam doesn't speak in that film.
I don't interview in that film, but I'm there.
What'd you say? You're like eating some cashews or something?
Yeah,
like
I think
that?
I was in a cashew kick
nuts,
that
yeah.
day. Just crushing these cashews.
Oh man. Yeah. So definitely go check that out for sure. Do you have any advice anything in particular piece of advice in relation to archery that you would have for anybody new getting into it, or just anybody who's been shooting a bow? I'd
say when you start out, we all suck.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. I mean, it happens. You get better.
Yeah.
The more time you put into it, seek out help if you want. But, we've all been there when it's just, you think you're doing great, and then you see someone shoot better than you, and you're like, oh, I suck.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're like, no, you just need more time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, don't go buy a 80-pound bow if you're just starting out. You know,
That's a good one. Yep, I like that.
There's nothing wrong with shooting. What are you at? 47, 48 pounds?
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Like,
I had a shoulder injury. But
yeah.
whatever.
That's just me jabbing them when I can.
Yeah, that's okay.
But I think I had a 60-pound bow, and I dialed it back to like 53 or something like that. But you know, when you first started shooting it, you're gonna be sore because you know you're using muscles that you don't use a whole lot of the time, and you draw that bow back, you know, 10 times a day, 50 times a day, whatever it happens to be. You're gonna be pretty sore. Just take it easy. Don't hurt yourself. Make sure you actually knock an arrow before you shoot. That's probably the big one.
One other thing I'd say is if you've never been to a 3D shoot or want to, just find one around your area.
Yeah.
Go there. And if you see a group going out or a person, just ask them if you can join.
Yeah.
How many times we've been somewhere and someone's like, do you mind if I join? I'm like, no. Why would I care?
Yeah.
And we're both going to do the same thing. Let's go have fun. You know, where it's like you get the stigma of like, you know, I don't know anybody. I can't go do this or anything. It's just, you know, if you find the one person that's like, no, I don't want you to shoot, either A, I'm sure they're trying to shoot and get out of there. They got something going on. Yeah. You know, or whatever is going on with them. But you're going to find a group to shoot with. So, yeah, go have fun.
It's kind of like going to the gym for the first time. Like a lot of people don't want to go to a big gym, you know, for the first time. You know, maybe they don't know what they're doing, or, you know, they think everybody's watching them, you know. That's, if people are looking at you, they're just making sure you're doing things safely. You know, that's really what it is. And it's kind of like that in archery too. You go to these, you know, these 3D shoots, or maybe you want to shoot a league for the first time ever. You know, maybe you're a little apprehensive about the crowd or how good you're going to shoot, or just go shoot. Man. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Yeah. You know, nobody's going to, you know, throw shade at you because you're not hitting X's every time. Right. You know,
and we always do that thing too, where a lot of times, you know, there might just be 2 or 3 of us in a group, and then you've got a couple guys behind you shooting, and it's just like, why are we doing this? Let's just shoot together. You know, and I've met so many cool people, and even just like out at the TAC this last year, it's like just having, so what do you do, and talking about, and then I mentioned the podcast, and then, you know, we get done shooting, get off the range and stuff like that, and 20 minutes later I'm sitting there eating a burger and having a beer, and I get a notification that, you know, we got 2 new follows, and then, you know, a couple more follows come from those people who followed us, you know, so even just that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? And of course with you guys too, it just makes sense, right? To, it's just, you just meet, it's a good way to meet people. And especially like if you're introverted, you know, it's just a really good segue, you know, to get into that. 'Cause now you're kind of, you got some common ground to start the conversation with, and then you can kind of move into more things after that.
Yeah.
But,
and one thing I love too, like when we're at a shoot, you know, and we're all wearing Archery Origins hats or shirts and stuff like that, you know, get people in like, what is that? I'm like, perfect. Here we go. Let me give you my sales pitch, you know, kind of thing. And you just tell them, we're just like, we're just a group of guys, you know, this is what we do, you know, kind of thing. And then, and we had one individual at a HHA USA shoot that gave us a very generous donation, you know, a cash donation. And it was just one of those things. And he just felt that he needed the help, you know, and it's just one of those things where we're like, thank you. You know, believe it or not, this is going to go a lot farther than you think, or you know, and it's like, you have the opportunity to save somebody, you know, like you said, you know, if there's substance abuse or something like that, it's like, here's your new drug, man. Let's go. You know, here's a bow. And then, you know, how many guys are like, cool, we're going to take you hunting. You know, now, you know, you're taking, you know, you're going to harvest a deer. Now here's food for your family. You know, now it's here for something, for you to get an opportunity to learn how to cook this. You know, now your kids are cooking with you. You know, all different things like that. You know, so it's just a huge opportunity that you don't realize that, you know, starts segueing into the next thing. You know, and it's the other day we got a picture from one of our guys. You know, they had a venison backstrap dinner. You know, and it's kind of things like that. And it's just like, cool, this is what it's about. You know, and so, taking those opportunities to talk to somebody new. And how many times when we get it where somebody's, you know, you meet someone that was a veteran from an older generation, and they're kind of hesitant, and you're like, we're both veterans. We've both served. You know, there's why is there the stigma of, you know, that because I deployed to this location, you didn't, or whatever, that we're different. So, I mean, just the conversations you have, and man, I love listening to old timers talk about when they were in. Just what they dealt with and the things they were doing. It's just like, yeah, you were a badass. I was just here.
Right. Yeah. And it made me think about also like what you were saying in regards to, just asking people. And, I would want to add to that and say archery has its fair share of jerks, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So you may have somebody, I don't know, maybe somebody might not be like, well, no, you can't shoot with me. But I've had situations where you asking somebody a question and they're just kind of standoffish. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to really talk about it. And again, I try to look at it as, maybe they're just really introverted too, and they don't want to. But just keep going. You're going to find somebody that's going to help you. So don't be discouraged by that. You know what I mean? It's just there are some people out there that they just want to gatekeep or just want to keep to themselves, and that's okay. And just keep moving on. You're going to find somebody that is going to be willing to talk to you, help you, and come along, man. Let's go. Let's have fun. Let's be friends,
For sure.
All right. Well, folks, that brings us to the end of this episode. Kyle, Adam, thanks again so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And I know you already mentioned it, but where can folks find you guys if they want to get in touch for anything?
Website is archeryorigins.org or Archery Origins on Instagram. So go ahead and find us. Awesome.
Cool. Well, you can find us at The Range Podcast on Instagram and on Facebook. Also, be sure to head over to the Vapor Trail and Stokerized social channels and give us a follow over there. You can also find the video version of this episode on the Vapor Trail YouTube channel. If you like the video, hit that thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe so you can be up to date on all things archery. If you're listening, do me a favor, give us a rating and make sure you give us 5 stars. Only 5 stars. And with that, we are going to pack up our bows and arrows and we're hitting the range. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Vapor Trail is now offering an exclusive discount to the Range Podcast listeners. Enter promo code TRP15, that's TRP15, at checkout for 15% off VTX bowstrings and Vapor Trail and Stokerized branded t-shirts, hats, and other gear.